Imagine a country once filled with hope, a place where people believed they could carve out a brighter future. That was Burkina Faso. For years it was led by Blaise Compaoré, a man who kept a firm grip on power. To some, he symbolized stability. To others, his rule felt suffocating, relying on strict control to remain in charge. Then came 2014, and everything changed. The people of Burkina Faso had reached their breaking point. Crowds filled the streets, united against Compaoré's plans to extend his time in office. They were determined to reclaim their future, and they succeeded. Compaoré stepped down, leaving behind a nation ready to start fresh. For a brief moment, it seemed like a new chapter was beginning. A transitional government took over, and excitement grew about the possibility of free elections, something the people hadn't seen in years. But just as hope was rising, disaster struck. Loyalists to the old regime launched a coup, aiming to stop the elections, dismantle progress, and return to the old ways. The coup threatened to undo everything the people had fought for. But the people of Burkina Faso refused to give up. Once again, they filled the streets, their message clear. They would not let their hard-earned freedom slip away. Even the military began to fracture as some soldiers turned against the coup plotters. Within days, the uprising was defeated, and the transitional government regained control. Still, the failed coup left scars. It wasn't just about the immediate danger. It raised tough questions. Could the country truly move forward? How could leaders ensure democracy without constant threats of unrest? Fast forward to 2025, and Burkina Faso faced another crossroads. The government made a shocking announcement. They would offer amnesty to those involved in the coup. The decision sent shockwaves through the country. Why forgive those who tried to derail progress? The scars from the coup ran deep. It wasn't just about the chaos or disruptions, it was about trust. Trust in the system, in leadership, and in the idea that the people's voices could shape their future. The coup had reopened old wounds, exposing tensions that many hoped were fading. It was a stark reminder of how fragile Burkina Faso's journey toward democracy was. The government faced a difficult choice: punish the coup plotters and risk more unrest, or forgive them and risk seeming to betray the people's fight for justice. It was a no-win situation, but one thing was clear: the country couldn't stay stuck in the past. Decisions had to be made quickly. Burkina Faso had endured years of dictatorship, a revolution, and a coup that nearly tore everything apart. Stability wasn't just a desire, it was a necessity. But how could the country move forward when the wounds of the past were still fresh? Some might say, forget what happened and move on. But the events of 2015 weren't something you could sweep under the rug. In 2014, the people stood up and pushed out Blaise Compaoré, a leader who had clung to power for decades. It was a historic victory. And for the first time in years, there was hope for a democratic future. Then came the coup. Soldiers loyal to the old regime fought to hold on to their power, threatening to plunge the country back into chaos. The coup exposed deep divisions, not just between pro-democracy advocates and Compaoré loyalists, but across families, communities, and even the military. When the government regained control, they were left with a massive question: what now? How do you build trust in a system that was almost destroyed? In a bold and controversial move, they decided to offer amnesty to the coup plotters, not as an excuse for their actions, but as a path to reconciliation. The decision was divisive. Some saw it as mercy, others saw it as betrayal. But Burkina Faso was fragile. The coup had revealed just how precarious things were. Punishing the plotters could spark more violence, while forgiveness was a gamble that aimed to foster peace. The amnesty wasn't about excusing the coup, it was about preventing another. The government hoped to create space for reconciliation, focusing on the future instead of being trapped in bitterness. It was a risky move, Would it bring healing or send a message that democracy could be attacked without consequences? The decision wasn't simple forgiveness. The plotters had to acknowledge their actions and prove they could contribute to rebuilding the country. It wasn't about letting them off the hook. It was about accountability with a purpose. The future of Burkina Faso depended on it. Survival first. They were required to publicly admit their roles in the chaos. No hiding, no excuses. Imagine standing in front of a nation and saying, "Yes, I was part of this." That's no small thing. But admission alone wasn't enough. 3. Second condition was a game changer. They had to join the fight against insurgents threatening the country's stability. These weren't hollow promises. They were commitments to help heal the very nation they had tried to destabilize. Critics were vocal. To many, it felt like justice was being sacrificed for convenience. They worried it sent the wrong message, that you could get away with treason if you played your cards right. The government saw it differently. Reconciliation was the only way forward. Burkina Faso couldn't afford to remain a house divided, especially not with insurgent groups gaining strength in the region. The amnesty law wasn't about letting anyone off the hook. It was about uniting the country against a common enemy. How it worked. The amnesty law wasn't a simple, "you're forgiven, go home" situation. To qualify, soldiers had to meet two non-negotiable conditions. Admit exactly what they'd done during the coup. No vague statements, no dodging responsibility. Commit to actively helping the government tackle the growing threat of armed insurgencies. In short, amnesty wasn't just a pardon, it was a pact. For Burkina Faso, these conditions were critical. The country faced increasing attacks, and the government needed all hands on deck, even those that had once tried to overthrow it. This wasn't about erasing the past, it was about securing the future. If these soldiers could redirect their loyalty and skills toward defending the nation, they could become part of the solution instead of remaining symbols of the problem. The risks. The plan had its share of risks. How could the government ensure these soldiers wouldn't betray their promises? What if amnesty became a loophole for avoiding accountability? Forgiveness, in this case, wasn't a clean slate. It was a challenge to rise above past mistakes. Amnesty. It wasn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. Yes, it meant these soldiers wouldn't face legal consequences for their actions and could return to their communities without fear of prison. But it wasn't about escaping justice. It was about earning redemption. By agreeing to the terms, they weren't just avoiding punishment, they were taking on a new responsibility. Amnesty gave these soldiers a chance to prove they were more than their past actions. A second chance. This wasn't just about making peace with the government. It was about showing the people of Burkina Faso that they were ready to protect the country they'd once put at risk. It was a second chance, but it came with strings attached. Those strings weren't just about accountability, they were about responsibility. Imagine being given a second chance, not just to right your wrongs, but to help rebuild what you once tried to tear down. That's exactly the deal offered to the soldiers involved in Burkina Faso's 2015 coup. Controversial forgiveness. Was this fair? Some argued it wasn't. Forgiveness on this scale felt controversial. Critics asked, how do you forgive someone who tried to destroy everything you fought for? For the government, though, the decision wasn't about letting anyone off easy. It was about survival. After decades of dictatorship and political chaos, Burkina Faso had started moving towards something better. The coup had been a wake-up call, showing just how fragile that progress was. If the government didn't act decisively, the divisions created by the coup could undo years of hard-won change. Offering amnesty wasn't just about forgiving individuals, it was about creating a roadmap for peace and unity. Moving forward. The government's decision to offer amnesty to soldiers wasn't just bold, it was absolutely critical. Forgiving alone wasn't enough. These soldiers needed to actively work toward rebuilding the country they had once nearly torn apart. Strict conditions were laid down. Take responsibility for their actions. Promise to join the fight against insurgents threatening Burkina Faso's future. This wasn't about endless cycles of political revenge. It was about uniting people, even former adversaries, to stand a chance at long-term peace and security. The debate. This decision sparked heated debates across the country. Supporters saw it as a step in the right direction, a way to break the cycle of violence and work toward unity. Critics, on the other hand, worried it sent the wrong message, that attempting to overthrow a government came with little consequence. Would this amnesty help the country heal, or would it deepen divisions? The people of Burkina Faso are watching closely. This is more than just a political move. It's a test of whether the country can truly heal and build something stronger from its fractured past.